For those of you who don't know me, I'm Judy Edwards, the Career Center Specialist here, better known as Judith Edwards, the spam lady as the kids call me. So for you get those Judith Edwards, I am really real. The kids, I was called the crazy email lady the other day too, but I know they're doing it with affection. We are so glad you're here tonight. We're glad that you were able to join us. We had to reschedule this program from earlier this month, and we've had a couple changes. It won't be Dan Frank from George Mason University. We have graciously Dale Schmidt from College Access, who is a champion, what is it called? Financial aid champion for Fairfax County Public Schools. And Dale and I have worked together for many years, so I was really thrilled when he filled in a pinch. So the handout you have is from the original, but we will be incorporating both sessions, so you'll get more for your money tonight. For those of you parents that are seniors, how many senior parents do I have here? All right, you'll be getting emails throughout this whole financial aid process about fill in the FAFSAs. We actually, Fairfax County sponsors, along with College Access, we do actual help families fill in their FAFSA. And they're all throughout the county. There's some on weeknights, Saturdays, earlier in the evening, later in the evening. Like Braddock will be hosting one on the 23rd of Monday, February 23rd, in our library between 5 and 7. So you'll get information about what you need to bring and about all the things that are going on throughout the county. The emails have already been posted in Family Connections. So if you need to see the complete list, it's available on College Access, which you'll be hearing more about this evening. That's part of our sponsors. For junior, sophomore, and freshman parents, don't be alarmed. We do this program each year, so there's a lot to grasp, and each year there's more to learn. So I applaud you for coming as an underclassman. Regarding scholarships, if your child is interested in pursuing scholarships, there's a complete list on Family Connections. And there are scholarships for 9th, 10th, and 11th graders. Very few, but there are some. And 12th graders, of course, the list is much longer. You go to Family Connections, the College tab, scroll down to Scholarship List. The kids all know about this, so we urge you to sit down with your child and kind of review. It's a little bit of work because you have to actually click on the name of the scholarship and it gives you all the details. In many cases, it actually gives you the actual scholarship, download the application. We tell kids not to wait to the last minute because recommendations are needed and high school transcripts are needed. And there is a procedure to go through, just like they did when they applied to college. So we encourage the kids, if they need any help, please urge them to come see me. And if you're from another school, please go see your Career Center Specialist. We are the scholarship gurus in each school. So without further ado, I'm going to turn this program over to Dale Schmidt from College Access and let him educate you on the free application for federal student aid.
Am I on? Which direction does the button go?
There it goes. Okay, if any of you have heard me speak before, don't worry, I never do a talk the same way twice. The other thing that's fun about this one tonight is that I took my own slides when Judy asked me to talk. I took my own slides, and I was fortunate enough to have the advantage of access to the slides that the person from George Mason was going to give. So what I did is I took some of his ideas and I glommed them in with some of mine. Made me feel better that he didn't say too many things that I would have said. Strike that. He didn't say too many things that I would not have said, but he said them differently. And well, you haven't seen the slides, but they're mixed in, and sometimes I'll tell you what they're about. Basically, what I want to give you tonight, we will talk about the FAFSA, probably not in as much detail as Judy may have thought. What I've structured this as is a talk about financial aid basics, which I think is going to be great for the underclass families. For the senior families, I hope you've heard it. heard some of this a little bit before because we're right in the thick of it now, and you really need to be working on financial aid with your children. A point about the scholarships, as Judy said, there are many more available for seniors than there are for the underclassmen. But the way the underclassmen should use that list is they should go through and look at the scholarships and what's available and what the subject matter is and what might be of interest to them. And if it's available for freshmen, find some place to make a note and keep that note so that then when they hit senior year in September or October of senior year, they can get right back to that scholarship and apply for it early on in the year. There are all too many students who don't work on scholarships until maybe January because then they're done with their college applications. A lot of these scholarships have deadlines in September through December, and if you wait till January, sorry, they're just not there. They're not available. So plan ahead and get in the habit of looking at that list. The other thing is that if you start when you're a freshman or a sophomore, then by the time you're a senior, it'll be second nature to be going to look at that list once a week. And in senior year, once a week is good because it's constantly being updated. If you're an underclassman, every 2 weeks is fine. Okay, now we'll start launching through my slides when I figure out how the clicker works. Is it one? Oh, wait a minute, I bet I have to turn it on.
You're scaring me, Dale.
Yeah, well, every school's different. Some of them don't even have clickers. How do you turn it on? Oh, the side. They hit it. Which side? She'll do it while I talk. Thank you. I go to schools where I sometimes don't even get a microphone, and I have to yell at everybody so they can hear me by the end of the evening. Oh my God. Okay. There's probably a way to make it go forward and backwards. Point at what? Oh, that's an idea. You also have to find the
How
right.
about if I just click for you?
Well, just show me which button.
I'm not sure.
Isn't this fun? This is your entertainment for the evening. You can do it with the, oh, look at that. Okay. I may have to walk back and forth until Judy figures out the button. Anyway, one of the things that I like to stress early on in these things is that this is a family project. Your students need your help. They need your financial information to complete the FAFSA and some of the other forms. You need to be working with them because sometimes they get their priorities mixed up a little bit and you may need to keep on them a little bit. The other thing that's important is talking about what your family can afford. If you're like a lot of families, that your kids are coming to school every day and they're talking to their friends and their counselors and their teachers about places that they might like to go to college. And that's great. They should be getting as many ideas as they can. But as they're creating that list of colleges, just as the counselors will tell them to have a couple of schools that they're pretty sure they can get into, and then a real, safety school, and then maybe one or two reach schools where if all of the numbers work out right and the grades and the financial aid, then maybe they could go to those places. Well, you should be doing the same thing with them on the cost of college. When they come home and they're excited about some school, you just quietly want to ask them, you don't want to, well, you want to quietly ask them, do you have any idea how much that place costs? And if they don't, you want to go do some research and encourage them to start doing some research too. Go to the college website and look at the financial aid page because it will tell you what the cost of attendance is at that school. And if it's completely out of the picture for your family, or is likely to be completely out of the picture, you want to help them understand that they need to get the best grades they can, they need to find financial aid of whatever source they can, and that you will help to whatever extent you're capable of. But that may not be anything. Your family may be living pretty close to the edge. So help them to understand that, and you don't need to give them every detail about how much you make as a family, but let them know that this is not a free venture, and this is going to take some work on your family and some sacrifice on the part of those of you who are staying home and not going to have fun on the campus. Is that the next one? Oh, look at that. Okay, what's financial aid? We got to start someplace with something basic. Basically, it's money that's available to help you with the cost of college. It's going to come from, it's likely to come from a lot of different sources that we'll talk about tonight in bits and pieces. The three major components that you will see in a letter from a college offering your child financial aid are usually scholarships or grants. And we'll talk about those. Basically, that's free money. And then loans. And if they're federal government loans, which is the first thing that most colleges will offer you, they will have a low interest rate and very favorable repayment terms. And again, we can talk about that in a little more detail later, but that's why you want to maximize federal student loans before you go to your friendly bank and try to get a bank loan. And then thirdly, something called work study or federal work study. That is basically a job on campus. And we'll get into more detail on that. Go ahead, Jim. How to get financial aid? Well, in short, the first thing you do is you fill out the FAFSA in January. The FAFSA stands for Free Application for Federal Student Aid. It is an online form that's maintained by the Department of Education, the U.S. Department of Education. And it's up there for free, and it's available. The one that your children need to file is available on January 1st of their senior year. So those of you with underclass parents, you could go out there and you could fill out the FAFSA. But when you get to senior year, that's the one that really counts. Wow. And it is basically, it's an application for a variety of all of those kinds of federal student aid, of a lot of kinds of student aid. It's basically the application form for loans. There's a question on there where they say, would you be willing to consider work study? And there's no harm in, a lot of students will look at me and say, well, what should I say? Well, there's no harm in saying yes, because this is not a contract. This is not an agreement that you're going to accept a work study job. This merely means that if the financial aid officer has those available and wants to offer one, you will seriously look at it. You may decide that that the student shouldn't or won't work in the first year of college. That's fine, that's up to you. But it's one more item that the financial aid officer can offer to your student. It also serves as an application for federal loans, the ones that we'll be talking about in a few minutes. It is also used for a lot of other aid that doesn't sound like federal student aid. There are a lot of grants, there are a lot of private scholarships where they're looking at what your need is. There are even merit scholarships these days where if they have 5 or 6 or a dozen students who are similarly situated, they may look at the FAFSA to see which one of them is needier than the others. And then the other thing is, remember that there may also be other financial aid forms from the college that you'll need to fill out. One example of that is the University of Pennsylvania. We have a lot of applicants there. They have a whole battery of their own documents for student aid. I think Princeton does too. But some of the other schools that aren't the real selective ones also do. Okay, some students may require a student to complete an institutional financial aid form. Institutional is a new term probably for a lot of you. Institutional basically means it's the school's money. Rather than offering you a federal loan or a federal grant, if they have money that they have accumulated in an endowment, that's called institutional money. And the schools that are better endowed than others, the Ivy Leagues, the Stanford, places like that, schools that are going to put a lot of their own money into the process will have another form that we'll be talking about called the CSS profile that you'll also have to fill out. Some schools have general scholarship application. This last point is really important, especially since the person who would have given this talk the last time is from George Mason. Some schools have very early application dates that usually drive their institutional financial aid. Two of them that are important in this area are George Mason and VCU. and I never can remember which one is which, but one of them requires you to apply by November 1st, and one of them by December 1st.
VCU is December 1st.
VCU is December 1st? And George Mason is November 1st. What that means in practice is that for your student to be considered for the maximum amount of student aid that's available, not just federal, not just state, but also the money that the school has, they need to apply by November or December 1st. That doesn't sound too bad if you can keep track of deadlines, but the bigger problem is George Mason's regular application deadline is January 15th. And I deal with students every year who think that, well, as long as I get my application in by January 15th, I'll be all right. Well, yes, they may be admitted, and yes, they may get federal and state aid, but if there's school aid, they won't be eligible for it because they will be late. Okay, what's on the FAFSA? Identifying information, that's the usual stuff, name, address, social security number, income and tax information. They will be asking for, this year they're asking for the up-to-date 2014 income tax return information. Most of you are sitting here saying, geez, I haven't even gotten started on it yet. Those of you who are seniors want to get on it as soon as you get the W-2s, probably at the end of this week or the beginning of next week. Now, there is a way of working around that. If you don't have your 2014 tax returns done, what you do is you use the 2013 income tax returns and you file the FAFSA with those. And by doing that, the school knows that whatever number comes out of the FAFSA is an estimate. And then you will get a reminder that says when you do your 2014 tax returns, sign on to FAFSA again and amend your FAFSA form. Whoops, go back up a minute. On the identifying information, one of the problems that we see fairly frequently is mistakes in Social Security information. So the best thing you can do is when you're doing the FAFSA, or when your children are doing the FAFSA, have them get the Social Security card, put it right in front of them, and double check it and triple check it so that they don't transpose digits. And with some of you who have foreign names, which are to people like me a little unusual, by copying just what you have on the Social Security card, that way when your FAFSA information gets submitted to Social Security and they check it, they won't come back and say, well, that's not who it says it is. And it will save you some heartache. And by the way, sometimes students forget to make those corrections when they first get the report back from the FAFSA. And they come to me in April and they say, well, I still don't have a financial aid award, and I did the FAFSA in February. And we call up and we take a look at the FAFSA, and sure enough, there was a mistake that didn't get corrected. So encourage your students when they get that report about the FAFSA to look at it, and if they have questions, to talk to their college and career center specialist, to somebody like me, whoever. Assets, they want to know about how much you have in the bank, and they want to know about investments. Now, investments for purposes of FAFSA are only your taxable investment accounts, second properties. They don't want anything about your principal residence, the house you live in. They don't want anything about your retirement plans. Well, if you're like me, a lot of your wealth is tied up in those two things, which means the FAFSA report just doesn't know anything about them. And the result of filling out the FAFSA, which we'll go into more detail in a minute, will be something called the expected family contribution. And that's sort of exactly what it sounds like. It's how much, based on this information, the federal government thinks that your family can afford to contribute to your student's college education. When you first read it, sit down. It will probably be wildly off of what you think it is in this area, because it doesn't include your house and it doesn't include your retirement assets. So it's going to think that you have a whole lot of money to throw around when most of you don't. Next. Okay, double check personal information. Be sure to read through the directions. For example, some people, I just worked with somebody last week who had a tremendously high expected family contribution, and they couldn't figure out what was wrong, and I went down and I asked them the question about investments, and sure enough, they hadn't read the instructions carefully, and they had included a 401k or a TSP or something. Make sure you enter the correct information from taxes. There are only about 4 items they want from your tax return. They want your adjusted gross income. That's the number at the bottom of the first page. Right now it's line 37. They want to know how much you earn from wages. That's a number you're going to do your best to get off of your W-2 form, although you can derive it from your tax forms. They want to know how much tax is due on your return. And they tell you the line. Last year it was line 55, and in the 2014 return it's going to be line 56. That is a number that does not include self-employment taxes. For those of you who are self-employed, you know that you pay your own FICA and you pay income tax on top of you pay your FICA withholding tax by yourself. And they don't want that number. They just want the amount that's the tax on your income. And the good news is, for a lot of the self-employed people I've been doing recently, they just happen to be doing things that really don't earn a lot of money, and their income tax is actually 0. And they're always kind of floored at that, because the next line is their self-employment tax, and that may be $1,500 or $2,000. So they're happy that it's 0. If you have Okay, there is something that you can use in filling out the FAFSA. It's not, technically it's not available yet, but it's something called the IRS Data Retrieval Tool. And what's going to happen is when you get to the screens on FAFSA that ask for tax information, they will say, would you like to go and get your tax information from the IRS? And then you sign, you go through a couple steps and it's possible to do it. The only time you can use that tool, that IRS data retrieval tool, is 2 weeks after you have filed your return electronically, or 6 to 8 weeks after you've filed it on paper. So if you're hustling and trying to get your taxes done so that you can get a FAFSA filed by, say, February 15th, and you get your tax done next week, maybe, the data retrieval tool will not be available to you until close to the end of February, so you're just going to have to take the numbers, and then later on that may come up again. It's a nice feature, and one of the reasons it's nice is because the college, when the information is transferred from IRS to FAFSA, they put in a legend up there that says transferred from the IRS. If the colleges don't see that, they may ask you to verify that information later on, and that's something they have to do by law, and it's more a nuisance than anything else. But if you can do the data retrieval tool at first, so be it. That's great. Make sure to sign the form with your PIN. You're going to get to a final page, and there are going to be, up at the top, it's going to have a place for the student to sign, and at the bottom there will be a place for one parent to sign. And the way you sign on the FAFSA is you get a 4-digit PIN issued by the Department of Education. You get to select the number, which is a nice change from the old days, because maybe you can choose something that makes some sense to you instead of that random 4-digit number that they used to assign. I'm not sure how anybody submits a FAFSA without signing it. If you click the Submit Your FAFSA Now button and you haven't signed it, it's going to say you need to go back and sign it. But there are a couple of alternative ways that some people will occasionally use, so it is possible. Next. Okay, now we're going to get into financial aid and another term that is a financial aid buzzword, and that is cost of attendance. And it's pretty much just what it sounds like. I've listed these factors up on the screen. Tuition and fees, of course you have that in cost of attendance. Room and board, they've got to eat, they've got to sleep someplace. Books and supplies, transportation, and personal and miscellaneous expenses. Now, the magic of this term is that some schools don't use those factors. I was dealing with a student 3 years ago, I think now, who very much wanted to go to a certain school, and she got her financial aid award, and it looked pretty close, and it looked almost doable. And then we got digging into the cost of attendance that they were using, and they didn't include anything for transportation. This school was in Illinois. Was she going to thumb? Actually, it ended up that her parents drove her out there the first time, and I don't know how she's done it since then because I'm out of touch with her. But we also found out that they didn't include books and supplies. Well, books and supplies, I don't know how many of you have found out about this, but books and supplies now can easily run $1,000 a year or more. If you get somebody in the sciences or art history where you have all of those beautiful plates in there, multicolored plates and art, pictures of art or pictures of anatomical drawings or something, those are expensive to produce and expensive to buy. Now, fortunately, the market is starting to respond, and there are ways that you can rent books, or you can, some teachers will use something called course packs, where what they'll do is they will have photocopied, I'm not supposed to say Xerox, they will have photocopied a whole bunch of items that are important to read for that class, and you can get them for the cost of the copying. It's, those are usually, when my daughter was in school a few years ago, they usually ran about $20 a piece. Well, that sure beat what I did when I was in school, which is I buy 6 books. Of course, at that time, 6 books I could get for $25. But that's not the way of the world anymore. Okay, next. Okay, and this is the basic formula that you need to understand for financial aid. This is the basic overview of how financial aid officers work. They take the cost of attendance. They subtract out the expected family contribution, that amount that was derived through the FAFSA. And what's left is your need, your family's demonstrated need. And in the old days, which was until about 4 or 5 years ago, you could pretty well assume that a college would send your child a financial aid award that would be equal to that number, that need number. You can't assume that anymore. 2 years ago, when I got to about my 3rd financial aid award letter from Virginia Tech, each of them about $5,000 short, I called them up and I said, what's going on? Aren't you guys going to meet need? Well, nobody gets away without loans anymore. So you will need to look carefully at that financial aid award to see whether or not it's going to cover what you need. Either because it doesn't include some of the cost of attendance factors, as I just mentioned, or because the school just can't afford to offer you the full amount. And then what happens is in March or April, you're scrambling around trying to figure out where are you going to find that $5,000, or you're listening to your child scream at you and slam doors because you've just destroyed their dream. They can't go to that perfect school for them. Well, so that's, and underclass parents, this is another thing you can start thinking about, is starting to put together some kind of a safety net, a financial safety net, so that if your child is unfortunate enough not to get enough aid, there may be some extra money that you'll have around to help them pay those expenses. That's why I italicized the word should this afternoon when I was going over these slides. Okay, what is federal work study? I mentioned that earlier, that you may very well see that in the financial aid award package. It's a job on campus usually, but not always, and your child will work and they will be paid on whatever the schedule is, either bi-weekly or semi-monthly or monthly or whatever. And in your family, this is another one of those family discussions, you're going to have to discuss what's going to happen to that money. In my family's case, I told my kids, you use that for expenses, and that way I don't think I had any calls during those 8 years asking for, can I have another $100 because I want to do this or that or the other thing. They were able to earn enough and live within what they earned, so that worked out. In your family, it may not work out that way. You'll have to figure that out. Now, when you see that financial aid award, one of the tricks to reading it is it may include a certain amount in grants and a certain amount in loans, and that money will be funded at the time that the bill comes out, and you'll see that as a credit against the bill. They will also list work study, but the difference is that money won't be there because your child will earn that as the year goes on. And so you have to figure out, do we need to have that money up front in order to cover this bill or not? Again, financial aid awards are as different as each of you are, and I can't tell you what it will be. The work can be on or off campus. Student needs to apply for a general aid. My understanding is that the work study office is usually pretty close to the financial aid office. Don't hold me to that because the school your child goes to may be bigger or smaller and it may be different. But that's the place you go. Oh, yes, and then the following year, there's a question on the FAFSA about money that the student has earned, and there's a place to enter the amount that they earned from the FAFSA, earned from the work study. The reason for that is you don't want the student to be penalized for having earned that money, and so they separate that out in the computation. Next. Okay, scholarships. What are scholarships? Scholarships are free money. They come from every place. I will say that many times tonight. They don't need to be repaid. The guy who made this slide broke them out into three ways. Merit awards, often based on the academic profile. Students got terrific grades, terrific SAT scores or ACT scores. Therefore, they're eligible for some kind of a scholarship. Athletic awards, and special talent or interest. When you start digging into what scholarships are available, you're going to be amazed. Two of the most out there awards that I've heard of are the one for tall people. That means boys who are over, I think it's 6'3", and girls who are over 5'10". Okay? Not bad for just eating 3 squares a day and going to gym class and doing your thing. There is also one out there for left-handed people. So I'm not sure what percentage of the population that is, but it may apply in your family.
Even one to make a prom dress out of duct tape.
That's right, yeah, to make a prom dress out of duct tape. Is that for boys too, or is it just girls?
They can make a tuxedo or whatever.
They can make a tux? Okay, so there's some things that you're going to look at and you're going to say this is pretty outlandish, but who cares if it provides free money to help your child go to school, okay? And then outside of the school, there are all kinds of places, community organizations. I can assure you, Kiwanis and Rotary and the ELTS and all those groups all offer scholarships. Large corporations and employers, some of you are going to find that your employer offers scholarships for children of employees, and you want to look into that. It's probably not as frequent as it used to be anymore, but it might be there. Clubs and associations, you'll find even within the school here, there's probably a boosters club scholarship. There may be a swimming club scholarship. There may be for some of the sports, maybe a musical or for band or for theater or something. Religious groups, ask at your church whether there are scholarships. I was talking to a mother just today, and it turns out that the family is Baptist, and 2 of the schools that the daughter has applied to are Methodist affiliated, so she can't get a Baptist scholarship to go to a Methodist school. But if she were Methodist, I don't know how hard it is to convert, but it's a possibility. The point, the takeaway here really is keep asking. Look at that list on Family Connections every week. As you go around and you think of just thinking random thoughts, start asking people and organizations whether they offer scholarships. Next. Loans. I have really stripped this down. I will be happy to take questions on it, but I want to give you some basic points. The basic loan that many of your students will be offered and will be listed on the FAFSA as something they're eligible for is called a Federal Direct Stafford Loan. Stafford was the name of the senator who created or who got the law passed a number of years ago. These are loans that are directly from the federal government to your child, not to you, to your child. And they're limited in the amount that they can get. In the first year, it's $5,500. Goes up to $7,500 by the time they get to be juniors and seniors. 2 types, subsidized and unsubsidized. Subsidized means that there is no interest charged while the student is in school. Unsubsidized means the interest is charged. So your student will get a bill, I believe it's quarterly, but it could be semi-annually, while they're in school if they have unsubsidized student loans, that ask them to pay that. And if they don't pay that amount, it's not horrible. It will be added to the amount of the loan. However, the current interest rate on these loans is 4.66%. And the maximum unsubsidized student loan that's available each year is $2,000. All of you mathematicians out there know that 4.66% of $2,000 is about $92. Say 100 just to make it easy. 1/4 of 100 is $25. So if they get a bill for $25, they should be encouraged to pay it so that it doesn't get added to the loan with interest. And all they have to do to pay that is maybe skip going out for pizza and a movie once every 3 months. Shouldn't be so hard. I know if there are any students in here, I understand it's a major strain. But it's a good strain to learn how to live with for the rest of your life. Next slide, please. Now, these are two other loans. Perkins loans are available to students. They're also available to parents. The terms are a little different. And then Parent Plus loans. Well, oftentimes what we see is a financial aid award that has scholarships and grants, loans to the student, maybe a work study, and then the remaining amount is in the form of a Parent Plus loan. Plus stands for Parent Loan for Undergraduate Students. Plus loans are also available to students and the graduate students. We don't need to go into that. The interest rate is a little higher. It's 7.21%. That's more than what you're paying on your house, probably most of you, but it's still a pretty good rate, and the terms are quite favorable. You will have to do, you parents, if you decide to do a plus loan, you will have to do one other screen, and they will do a credit check on you. It's fairly simple. They do it right on the spot. And then assuming your credit comes up okay, you'll then go through and fill out the rest of the form. And it will be awarded to you. For all of the loans, both for your student and for yourself, you will have to go through I call it a briefing, I can't think of the term I want, but basically you will have to sit down at your computer and go through a series of screens, and they will tell you about loans, and the fact that you have to repay them, and that there are different kinds of repayment plans, and that there are interest rates. These are all things, if you own your house and have a house mortgage, or if you bought a car and had credit on it, you probably as adults have some idea of it. But not everybody does, and certainly most of the kids don't. So it's a pretty good thing. You go through this, and they do have some little check quizzes in there that you have to survive in order to get to the end of it. But at the end of it, then you are allowed to sign what's called the Master Promissory Note. That's the document that actually legally requires you to repay the loan, and which will be brought up in court if you get sued because you didn't pay it. But it's like the note that you signed on anything else. Of course, most of the time when you do that, you get a big stack of paper, and somebody's sitting there just saying, sign this, sign this, sign this. And unless you're really interested in those things, you probably don't ask or read them. So, other sources of funds. This is just a partial list. This is if you get to that March, April point and you say, oh my God, what are we going to do? Or if you're planning ahead, what could we do? All of the universities have payment plans. And what that means basically is that they will allow you to break up the amount you owe and pay it, usually over 10 months in equal amounts. It really is like a no-interest loan, but they don't treat it like that, and they also don't have the paperwork like that. So if you say, I'd like a payment plan, they say, okay, it'll cost you $50, and then they sign you up, and each month you get a bill, or you create a debit, or however you'd like to do it. Savings. There's a four-letter word that I like to use when I'm talking to the students, and they think I'm going to get really racy. But that four-letter word is S-A-V-E, save. A lot of the students are working. Some of them are making pretty good money. It's embarrassing how little of it gets saved. Now, sometimes I understand in the family situation they really have to contribute to the, to eating. But there are a lot of students I work with who don't. And basically they spend every penny, or virtually every penny they earn in those summer jobs or school year jobs. It's time to start learning to save, because then when you need the money, or you think you need the money, and you might have been tempted to call mom and dad, you may have the money. Or if you get to that situation where the financial aid isn't quite enough, maybe you're going to have enough money to be able to go to that school that you want to go to and have your lifetime dreams met. Borrowing from private sources. This probably should be close to the end of your list. If you go to the bank you deal with, they're very nice people, and they will probably offer to give you a loan. The interest rate will not be as good. The repayment terms may or may not be as good as the federal loans, so it should be farther down the list. 529 plans. Anybody know what 529 plans are? That's not bad. It's getting better each year I do these talks. I won't ask you how many of you have them. I'm just asking. 529 plans are run by a quasi-government corporation called Virginia 529. And they are programs where you can save the money. You can either do it, you can do it in one of two basic ways. One, you can buy in advance semesters of tuition for school. So let's say you figure your child's going to go to school someplace in Virginia. So you go to 529, let's say you're pretty sure your child's going to go to a community college. So you go to 529 and you say, I would like to buy 4 semesters of community college education. And they have done and you say your child is 7 years old. They have done the calculations, the projections to what they think that college or community college will cost in 12 years or whatever it is. And they will charge you an amount which, with investment, can amount up to that. And then you have the guarantee that when your child is a freshman or a first-year student at a community college, you send 529 the bill, and they send the check to whatever the college is. It's a good deal. It's very sound. Virginia has one of the soundest programs in the nation, also one of the largest. You can also do it for regular college, and you can buy any number of terms. You know, depending on what your financial ability is, you can do it paying monthly, you can pay a sum up front. The rest of the 529 plans are basic savings vehicles. You take money in whatever quantity and you put it in, and it accumulates and it grows if they invest it well, except for 2007 and 8, it grows so that by the time your child is ready to go off to college, there's a larger amount of money there, and it's available for whatever expenses you want, including tuition and fees. If you want to do a 529 plan, you can open the prepaid tuition plan until your child is in the 9th grade, but not after that. And the savings plan you can open at any time. And there are some things you can specify about how the money will be invested. And if you're interested in it, go to Virginia529.com and take a look at it. Give them a call. They're very helpful. They're very friendly, and also very knowledgeable. You may not want to own the plan yourself if you've got a sweet Aunt Tilly who's always liked your kids, and she wants to do something nice for them. Maybe she's got some money lying around and she can buy a 529 plan. Let me get through my list and then. Credit cards. A very bad last choice. The interest rates are, as you all know, extraordinarily high. But if, for example, and I have seen this happen, if, for example, your child is getting ready to go off to school, the financial aid money hasn't come in, but you know that it's going to, and I stress the word no, then you might want to pay on a credit card, because then in 2 months when the money comes in, you can repay the credit card, and all you do is pay the interest for a couple of months.
Yeah.
And then finally, as I said before, search for outside scholarships, ask. Lady in the back, that question.
On the 529 plans on your FAFSA, does that count as a investment?
Oh, that's a good question. She's asking whether the 529 plans count as an investment. And the answer is, if you or your child own the 529 plan, then they do. They count as investments. If Sweet Aunt Tilly owns it, they don't. The amount that your child uses in the first year of college from the 529 will go on the next year's FAFSA, just listed as untaxed income that has been available to the student. And there are some other things that go along with it, but basically the answer is maybe. Okay, next one. Okay, caution. I think this might be my last slide. Avoid scams. There are a lot of them out there, and we hear about new ones every year. If somebody tells you you're guaranteed to win a scholarship or get your money back, turn around and walk the other way, or run the other way. You can't get this information anywhere else. Rubbish. I did a Google search a couple of years ago on the word scholarship. I got 33 million hits. I haven't read them all, but there's a lot of information out there. Give us your credit card number to get started. Oh, that's a dangerous one. The scholarship will cost some money. If you ever have to pay for a scholarship, turn them down. Because I read about one a few years ago where they said, well, you pay us $500 and we guarantee you I think it was a $500 scholarship. Well, yeah. Yeah, well, here, I'll give you a $10 scholarship. You're a finalist for a scholarship you didn't apply for. Yeah, those come in the mail a lot to seniors, and they do, sometimes if you parents don't intercept them, they sometimes bring them into Judy or to me or somebody, they say, should I do this, should I do this? No. If it sounds too good to be true, it is? Thank you. Come to a free seminar. Now, there are a lot of those. We, College Access Fairfax, and the school system hold a program called Scholarship 101. We usually do it a couple times in the fall, and I believe we're going to do it once later this spring, trying to pick up junior parents. We're okay. We're free. We aren't going to ask you for anything. So listen to us. Listen to people at your school who are here to help you. But these other guys, be real cautious. And then we'll do all the work for you. That's dangerous for a lot of reasons. First of all, a lot of scholarships will require some kind of a brief essay. You know, tell us about yourself in 250 words. Tell us why education is important to your future. Those are things that students know about, and if anybody else is writing that essay, you kind of wonder what's going on and what they might be saying. So students have to do a little work to get this process to work. But it's better that they do it than then some stranger who really doesn't know what's going on. And actually, no, we don't have any, never mind, we don't have any of those people anymore in the schools. Next slide, I think, is the end. Okay, this is basically what I said at the beginning. What I did is I took some of my own thoughts, and since I'm in an academic institution, and some of the thoughts of a guy at George Mason, and I glommed them together into these slides. And I won't tell you which is which, but I liked what he had to say. I thought it was very good, so I used it. Flattery is the, anyway. Yes, ma'am.
Can you mention then about the different websites? Because sometimes the official one and the private ones, they look very similar.
Good point. Thank you. I forgot that. FAFSA. Everybody. The website you want is FAFSA.gov. That means it's maintained by the government. If you go to Google, as a lot of students do, and you put in FAFSA, the first entry will be another one. It will be a commercial one, and you go all the way through this form, and then at the end, before you submit it, they'll say, now, would you like to pay that with a credit card or cash? And the fee is about $80. And I will tell you, this man's opinion, they don't give you $80 worth of value, especially when you can come in and sit down with Judy, with me, and we're free. We're here for the cost of your tax dollars. So go to the government website to fill it out. Don't go to the commercial site. Yes.
And it's FAFSA.ed.gov. That's the.
You can either do FAFSA.gov or FAFSA.ed.gov. They both work. They changed it a couple of years ago.
One that says FAFSA.com. That's the .com website.
That's the one to stay away from.
Yeah, so
I generally don't even mention it so that nobody makes a note of it, but you heard it there first. At this point, I'll be happy to take questions. If you have to leave, I will understand, but if you want to ask questions.
Yeah, I had a quick question. You said that there were some of these scholarships and things that the deadline was like November or December, but that FAFSA doesn't get filed till January 1. Can you apply for anything without the FAFSA being done?
You can apply. She's asking about scholarships that have deadlines in the fall, but the FAFSA doesn't get filed or doesn't get prepared until January. Two answers to that question. If you need a FAFSA before January 1st, you can fill it out. It's online. It's the FAFSA that was for last year's seniors, and it will give you the information you need. However, when you get to January 1st, your child's a senior, you will have to start again. Well, you don't start again. When you go on, it will say you're going to do a renewal. And the beauty of a renewal, it will pre-populate the form with some of the basic information, and then you'll just have to bring it up to date, which reminds me of another point. If any of you have multiple children in college or have twins or whatever, when you do the FAFSA, if you want to be efficient as you can be, when you've submitted the FAFSA, there's a page that comes up. It's a confirmation page. It says, congratulations, student name. You have just filed the FAFSA. The next sentence, I believe, says, if you have to do another FAFSA for a brother, sister, whatever, and there's a link there, you click on the link, and they will bring up a blank FAFSA, but it will have all of the parent information pre-populated. So all you do then is put in the student information, And if you know that in advance and you come, for example, to a FAFSA completion workshop, you can bring all of that information and get them both done at once. I had a friend actually had triplets, and he did a lickety-split after the first one, because basically it's just different information. So
if you do have multiple children that are going to go to college, how does it work for calculating the expected family contribution? Because there's only, you know what I'm saying, the income is,
right.
And it looks at it twice.
You will find, if you look, for example, at the first confirmation page, and it states an expected family contribution, you should expect that the second one will be about half of that, and actually the first one will be modified, I'm told. I have never seen one from that side, but it will also be about half. So if you have 2 kids, each one will be about half of what it would be if you only had 1. And if you have 3, it'll be a third.
Dale, one of the questions on FAFSA asks, how many children do you have in college,
It does.
including yourself? So they take that into account.
Yeah.
What are the tax implications of financial aid? Is that counted as income?
No. What are the tax implications of financial aid? Almost all financial aid at the undergraduate level is not treated as income for the student. When you get to be graduate students, sometimes they work as TAs or things. The only part that would get included on a tax return is if you get a W-2. I don't think you get a 1099 ever, but if you got a W-2 because you've done something for the university, worked as a TA, worked as a resident advisor, worked in the library, something like that.
Work study?
Work study, you will get a W-2 for, but on the FAFSA, there's a place where you list work study income, and that gets subtracted out, that's taken out of the calculation.
So, divorced parents.
Right.
So filling out the FAFSA, whose income? Mom, stepdad, mom and dad, both sets of parents?
Well, that's a wonderful question. The question is, if the parents are divorced and you're filling out a FAFSA, which parent's income gets included? You start with the custodial parent, the parent that the child lives with. And if that parent has remarried, then it's that parent and the new spouse, and you include both of those. If they aren't married, if they haven't remarried, then it's just the one. Sometimes that works out well, sometimes it doesn't. I don't know how often it happens, but I have to assume that there are a certain number of times where the new spouse says, "Me? Why me? I married you, not them." But the law says they want the new spouse.
Virginia, I think, recognizes or offers state residency equivalency for military kids. How does that affect their scholarships? Do they also consider kids part of the state for those purposes? You know what I'm at?
Not exactly. It's a question about military families who are considered in-state.
Some scholarships are considered in-state scholarships, and for those that are out of state.
You have, whatever the organization.
Yeah, that's what I didn't have. Yeah, if it's the school, you're probably okay. But if it's a private organization, you just have to ask because everyone has different rules. I think most of the time they're willing to bend and consider military parents as in-state, but our students as in-state, not always. Yes.
On the FAFSA, we're military as well, and we've signed over our GI Bill to our daughter. Do I show that someplace on the FAFSA, or is that just a separate program and separate path to take?
You're going to need to keep asking questions. I believe you included. There is a question about whether or not the student is eligible for military, or whether or not there are military benefits. There are 2 or 3 questions related to that.
Okay.
And that's where I said read the directions, because the money is available. It's an asset that's available to the student for education. So logically, it seems to me it ought to be included. But I'm not. I have only had, if you can believe it, I think I've only had 2 students who have had. This is the post 9/11 GI Bill. Yeah, who have taken advantage of it.
For those of you that have the GI Bill, I suggest every university has a VA benefits person on their campus. You need to contact that person and they will guide you through everything. The next question you need to ask that school, are you a yellow ribbon participant? Yellow ribbon makes your GI Bill money go a little further. a lot of the state schools do not participate in that, but a lot of the private schools do. And there is on the VA website, there is yellow ribbon, the list of colleges and what the matching funds is for undergraduate and graduate level. So
I talked to one of those military, I forgot about that, but I talked to one of those military rep people about a month ago at one of the schools here in Virginia. He really knew his stuff and was very willing to find out if he didn't, but I didn't ask him any questions he didn't know the answer. So
I used it for my daughter. She's in graduate school now, and she said that the VA person has been absolutely phenomenal for her. So every university, they're not always in the financial aid office. They tend to be sometimes in the bursar's office or the registrar. But your admissions officer, the admissions department will know who to direct you to.
any others? Sorry?
The IRS data retrieval tool.
No.
I electronically file my tax return today. I submit my FAFSA tomorrow. Should I go back in 3-4 weeks and amend my FAFSA to activate the retrieval tool?
That's the easier way of doing it. You could go in tomorrow by hand and put the information in, but the better way would be to use the data retrieval tool, simply because it will be stamped and that'll be one less thing for the financial aid office to verify.
I'm not sure you can follow. He says he's going to go ahead and apply, putting the numbers in himself. Then should he go back 2-3 weeks later and do that?
Well, he could wait 2 or 3 weeks from now and go in and use the data retrieval tool.
But could you do the data?
Should you?
Oh yeah, you should. Well,
Not if you if you've already put your information in correctly, there's no reason to go back and update your FAFSA. But
I'm just thinking that might reduce the comeback to verify the data.
you're right. It may accept it. I don't know, sir, for a fact. But it's worth trying. But again, it takes 2 weeks. And right now, if you do your FAFSA now, I don't believe they're accepting the data, the IRS data retrieval. Here's a question.
one over here and then over here and then, go ahead.
I was just going to say, as a parent of a sophomore in college and a sophomore in high school, I've learned a couple things. You can still apply for scholarships all throughout their college career, which I didn't really understand. I thought they were senior in high school. Oh, that's all you get that one shot. No, there's millions of scholarships out there. As my daughter's a sophomore in college, and she's got 10 more on her plate right now she's applying for. And the other thing I found out too, once your kid is in college, they're considered an adult, and the parent no longer has access to any of their stuff. They are offered financial aid, and if they want, all they have to do is check the box in their account. And so it's really important you talk to your kid and say, hey, do or don't check that box, because they're going to end up with a loan that you never wanted them to have. So
The other thing they can do as adults is they can decide that you don't get to see their grades.
exactly.
Of course, the answer to that is, well, they won't get to see your payments for their school expenses.
That's something, and Mrs. Cornell, I thank you so much for bringing that up. It is so important that you sit down and talk with your young adult when they go off to college. Because the day they enroll in that school, you do not have a say. It's not like coming into Lake Braddock and wanting to go talk with the school counselor or coming into my office. No college official will talk to a parent. So I urge you, and that's including Nova. So you need to have a very deep discussion with your child. And when my daughter was at school, when she got financial aid information, she would send the email, Mom, this one's for you. Because she knew I was the one writing the check or her dad was writing the check. So you need to have that conversation, because they don't read their emails, but that is the way colleges communicate with them. And that's why we have the system here at Braddock, and that's why I email them to death, because I'm trying to train them to read their emails. And if you talk to any 9th, 10th, 11th, or 12th grader here at Lake Braddock, they know what I tell them to do. Read it. If you like it, act upon it. If you're not, you're welcome to delete. And every email I send to students, I copy the parents. So I'm trying to keep you well informed, but you will not have that the day they walk on a college campus. Thank you so much for bringing that up.
You have a question?
Well, on the FAFSA and the timing of it, it seems like you want to get it done as quickly as possible. So waiting, like by the time we get all of our W-4s and all that kind of stuff, time has passed. It seems like you'd want to get it done as soon as possible. And
Well, there's a reason why you have to get it done as soon as possible. Every college has a financial aid deadline,
Right.
okay? And I have emailed those dates, and I will email them again tomorrow to all the senior parents. Some of them are as early as February 15th. So that's why you have to make sure, as the parent, to get on that website and find out when the FAFSA is supposed to be filed. Most state schools, it's March 1. But, so you submit it, even though your taxes are not complete, and then when you complete your taxes, go back in and update the information.